chicks with tools. And I am kind of on a tear doing chair rehabs in my house. This chair actually I bought to rehab. It's not one from the house. Got it for $5.35 at Goodwill. And it's a really great chair. I've always liked this kind of shape, and it's really sturdy, no rickety parts or anything. It's basically dirty, chewed up, and even though the fabric is cute and pretty much on trend right now, it's old and tired, and I also wanted to do something a little different with it. So this is going to be a really quick rehab, nothing complicated. All it's going to take is painting out the chair, washing it down really good first, painting it down. I want to sand it back a little bit and give it a little bit of that shabby chic look. And then I may or may not take, actually I think I will take off the fabric, because I see now that there's 3 layers of fabric on here. If you have that many layers, you probably ought to just get down to the bare bones. I do have some foam already on hand that I can recover it with. And then I will anchor it back to the chair so that it's not going to fall off anymore. And then it'll be done. And that could possibly take just a day or so. So next step is going to be cleaning up the chair and painting it. One thing this chair was missing was a cover for this hole right here. And I just happened to have one that already had stain on it. But then I have a whole bag full of brand new ones, and you can just pick these up at Lowe's or Home Depot and just glue them in place, and then it covers up the screw hole nicely and you're good to go. You've probably heard this before, but it's better to do thin coats than to do one big thick coat. So I've actually put one coat of primer on, and you can see that there's a lot of wood still showing through, but that's okay. I can come back and put another coat on. And this is just primer, and then I'll come back with some, the actual top coat. Something I wanted to show you is kind of fun. It's all the layers that I took off of that chair. And fortunately, they hadn't put too many staples on it. And in fact, one layer, I wasn't really sure how it was held on there. So that was the one that the chair came with. And then there's this one, and you can see the grime, and then that was a nice happy lime green at some point. Then before that we had a real fancy kind of silk. And before that we had, I would say, either 60s or 70s fabric. And then before that, I'm thinking this is in the 40s or 50s. I don't know the age of the chair, but it's fun to dig back and see all these past styles. I went on ahead and cut a new seat out of plywood. I had some scrap plywood, and I just primed it out because it has a bunch of stain on it since it was scrap wood, so that it just will look a little nicer from the bottom of the chair. Not that people generally go under chairs, but you never know. So this is the foam that I bought a while back for this project, and it's cheaper to buy it this way. This is a high density foam, so it's pretty, solid and firm. But like I said, it's cheaper to buy it this way than by the yard oftentimes, just because it's already pre-cut and pre-packaged. At least I think it is. I don't actually usually do it this way. And this is kind of the reason why. And you will see as I put my board up here that my board is actually wider than the foam is. So what I'm going to do is piece it just a little bit, and once I put the batting over the top, then it will still be nice and solid. So the way I'm going to do it is just trace it with a Sharpie, and a Sharpie, and I'm just going to trace it onto the foam, and then I left this much over here, and I should have, with this little extra wedge here, I should be able to flip it the other way and use it for that piece that needs to be filled in. So I'll double check my markings, and then I'm going to cut it with a carving knife. Okay, what I just did was I took some spray adhesive and I sprayed it on the foam and I sprayed it on the seat, and it's like a contact cement, and so you let it dry just a little bit until it's just tacky. And this is just to just hold it in place. It's not, you know, it doesn't have to be like super glue on it. It's just enough that it's not going to shift around when you're doing the rest of the project. And especially since I'm having to piece the foam, I wanted to do that. So I cut the little wedge here, and I also put some glue on the edge of here and the edge of here. I just want to be sure that I've got the right side going on the right side. And so there we go. And so, see, that's pretty good, right? So it's way better than, you know, having to spend money on a whole bigger sheet than you actually need. So the next thing I'm going to do is just knock down the edges a little bit, like a bevel, so the seat just doesn't look super square and boxy. This is a good way to get a bevel. So I decided to mark from the table up to here, which is 1.5 inches, and then I went from the outside edge in to 1.5 inches. And what that means is when I cut it, it will be at a 45-degree angle. And I can see the lines on the ends here. And so what I have to do is I have to go kind of slowly and go from this end so you can see that I line up part of the blade, the bottom part of the blade with this line, and then I line up the top part of the blade with this line, and then I just keep going slowly and cutting through, and then I end up with a nice even bevel. The next thing I'm going to do is add a layer of batting. And you don't have to do this all the time, but I want to do it on this chair. And part of the reason I want to do that is because if you don't put a layer of batting over the top of the wood, then the sharp points on the wood are eventually going to wear through your fabric, and you don't want that to happen. So this just softens up those edges, and also it will take out imperfections in the foam, and it just adds another layer of luxe. And it's not expensive. You can get massive rolls of this, especially with a coupon, for not too much. And this is what you use to make quilts. So I'm going to use spray adhesive one more time to do this, and I'm going to cut it big enough that it can wrap around the back side a little bit, just so we don't have those sharp edges. The batting on there, and I took off a lot of the extra fabric. I thinned out the corners. I still want these to go around the corners, like I said, because you want to cover up the sharp edges. That's part of the point. But don't have the batting or the fabric to come way in here on the bottom side. And the reason is we're going to be putting screws in all four corners to hold this onto the chair. And if you have never screwed through fabric, well, it is quite a treat, because it just twists all around the screw, and it's not pleasant. So you want to have all the fabric out of the way of any screws that you're going to be putting in the chairs. Well, it's time to get to the pretty part, which is the upholstery. This is the fabric that I'm going to be putting on this chair. I've already made 2 throw pillows out of it, so my idea was to have it all be one set for a home office or a little girl's bedroom or teenage bedroom, whatever. Anyway, so you lay it down fancy side, right side down, of course, and then you'll just center your little sandwich of wood and foam and everything here. And we're actually going to be working from all 4 sides at one time. So you're going to pull it all, staple it, put a tack staple on one side, Then you're going to put a tack staple on the other side, pulling it nice and tight. Then you will do the same here, and you will do the same here. And then we're going to work our way out, and we're pulling into the center as well as out at the same time. And then we will make up for any extra fabric by folding the corners. And this is the same way you stretch a canvas. It's just a multi-purpose kind of technique. Things down a little bit for the corners because that's where things get tricky. So first thing, be sure that you've got some batting covering that corner. I know I keep on saying that, but I mean it. So cut the extra out though, because you don't need lots of bulk underneath it. I have glue on my fingers so it's sticking. So then you want to cut whatever extra fabric you have here. Again, it's not necessary. It's nice to have a handle, have extra fabric when you're pulling it, but it's really not that necessary now. So you're going to get the corner nice here, and you can do, if you ever learned how to do square corners, like when you're making a bed, you can do that kind of thing where you just square it off right there, and that can look really nice. And because this is cooperating to do that, I think that's what I'm gonna do. There's a couple different ways you can do this kind of thing. The main thing is that you want it neat and you want it clean and with as little puckers as possible. I wanted to show you a little issue. Do you see how it kind of dimples in like that? Well, that's because there was one place where I pulled the fabric tighter than in other places. So the solution is just to take that staple out and re-staple it. Because sometimes you have things just plain too tight, and so you want to be sure that you've done kind of equal tension all the way around. And it's okay if you have to pull out a staple. I do it all the time. So you know, you don't have to be that perfect. If you're like me, then you get to a point in projects sometimes where you're just like, oh, I'm so done with this. Well, last night was that point. I was screwing the bottom on, and I could get the 2 screws in the back to hook into the wood, but then I went to put the front screws on and they just wouldn't go in, and I couldn't figure out why won't they go into this wood. And then I finally looked on the side and I saw this gap, and the gap is created by, guess what? Too much fabric and batting. And what I don't understand is how there were 5 layers of fabric on, and maybe that's why it wasn't screwed on the seats, because they couldn't screw it on the seat anymore. But also I realized that in the initial construction, they didn't have the batting coming down around the sides and underneath, because they made up for that by smoothing over the wood and beveling it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to problem solve. So I'm going to take out some of the thickness of this fabric and see if I can get it to sit down properly on the chair. Well, I got the problem fixed. I will show you how to do it on the one side. I've already done the other side. But what I discovered too is that in the different layers that I had in here, I didn't actually have the staples nailed in far enough, and so just pounding the staples in helped somewhat, but also I do have just too much fabric here. So what I did was, first of all, take out the staples, which I've already told you is just fine. You know, it's okay to have to redo stuff. But notice I do have quite a bit of material in there. So I'm going to cut out what's not necessary. And don't want anything extra. And then I have this one staple in here that's really sitting up pretty proud. I think I can do better than that. And then I'm also going to cut out any fabric that's extra. Now be really careful here because you don't want to cut it to the point where you're going to have a hole on the other side. So just be really careful, because now when I fold it over, I've got fewer layers coming back this way. I still need to get another staple here, and this one's standing up too proud. And so put that one in there, and then I'm just going to go on ahead and bang them down. The problem with working with something that's cushy is that you don't have that really firm surface to pound against. So it makes it a little bit harder. Okay. Alrighty, and then we do the thing where we fold in the sides once again, and then bring it down. I want to get a little smoother. Bring it down here. I'm going to put a staple in here. Pound it down really good. And that should be flat enough for the chair. Well, here it is, all finished, this sweet little chair that I just love. And I wanted to tell you that before I put it together, I did sand back the paint a little bit, and the reason is I don't want it to be so precious that it gets, you know, one slight little abrasion on it, and then you're like, oh no. So it's already pre-worn, kind of like pre-torn jeans, and that's one thing that's just great about the shabby chic look. And hopefully you can do this project even faster than I did. It took me just parts of a couple days, but part of that was because, you know, I did have to do a couple of redos, and I hope that you pay attention to my little pitfalls there so that you won't have the same problems. And you know, try it out. This is not a difficult project. So, and it's not particularly costly either. It is cheaper if you use brush-on paint as opposed to spray paint, because you will go through a couple cans of spray paint. So anyway, do try, and let me know how it goes. You can check me out at Chicks with Tools on Instagram and also on Facebook, and then you can go to our website, which is carithhouse.com, and look for the Chicks with Tools blog.